Doug Randall in for Glenn Woods. Glenn taking a few days off. He'll be back on the airwaves with us again bright and early on Monday. I'm speaking with Cheyenne City Councilman Rocky Case. Good morning, Rocky.
Good morning. Thanks for having me this morning.
Well, we appreciate you coming in. You might want to get a little closer to that microphone. Yeah, that looks better. Now, we were just chatting off mic, and one thing you're hearing a lot about is the situation at Thomas Heights. What's going on there?
Yeah, I did. I got a couple phone calls on that last evening. Of course, we had flooding all over town, but the situation at Thomas Heights is, I don't know how we remedy it, and it's not isolated simply to Thomas Heights. We have poor, we Saddle Ridge, Sunrise, both relatively new developments, and now Thomas Heights, and there's a clear trend that storm remediation, what it amounts to is they're going with the bare bones minimum and not anticipating the consequences of that downstream. And we've got flooding issues, and that causes basement flooding, neighbors having to deal with basement flooding, road erosion, sidewalk and gutter erosion, and the economic consequences of not doing it right the first time are clearly exposing themselves.
It's a hard problem to solve, though.
It is a tough problem to solve because, one, it wasn't done right the first time, and two, now who fixes it? And it's expensive to fix.
And the city doesn't have the money.
We don't have the money. We could have engineers come in and draw up all kinds of plans, but right now we don't have the money.
Is this going to end up in court, or what's going to happen?
I don't know what the neighbors over there are going to do. I really don't have that crystal ball. But it's a problem not only in Thomas Heights, it's a problem in other neighborhoods as well.
So how do we solve this going forward?
Well, I've certainly had conversations with our planning department, and are the minimums enough? Clearly they're not, because the evidence shows, look, we've got problems, and so I know that they're working on a host of different things for the future, but it's very difficult to go back and fix the past because of the cost.
So it's actually, maybe, I'm guessing from what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, easier to maybe put in some tougher standards going forward than it is to fix the existing problems.
Correct. Now, I know in my neighborhood, Sunrise, shortly after I moved in, it was brand new, and we realized, my gosh, there's flooding all over the place. Mm-hmm. And it's evident that the city understood that because they've had engineers come in and draw up new plans, but it's a $500,000+ fix, and so we need to find those dollars to fix it in multiple neighborhoods.
Rocky, looks like we have a call. You might want to grab that headset, and hopefully you'll be able to hear. Good morning. You are on the air.
Well, I'm glad. Anyhow, it always makes me wonder about the city government. If I was the builder and I wanted to build an area up, wouldn't I have to submit plans, and shouldn't, before I allow it, being the city, the government, shouldn't I go in there and know what I want to annex, rather than annex, build it, and then, we got a problem?
Is that a question, or?
Yeah, it's a question. Why didn't the city look into the problem of flooding and such as that before they annexed those areas into the city?
Rocky, you were able to hear that?
Yeah, I was. I agree with you, and I was not on the council when those areas were annexed. One of the reasons I decided to run was as the city grows east and south, which is really the only two ways we can grow, the planning needs to be done properly, and unintended consequences need to be looked at so that we don't wind up with these issues. I hear you loud and clear. Unfortunately, it is cost prohibitive to go and fix what's happened in the past, but what we can do is be better stewards for the future.
Yeah, well, that puts a lot of people, maybe myself, I'll tell you, we are at the bottom of the Whitney construction, mm-hmm. and we had a flood went through. They had a plastic thing up there, and it filled up with eons of, I don't know how many gallons of water. Anyhow, it overflowed, and so we had water about 4 inches deep coming all the way downhill through our property, through our well house, through our septic tanks and everything else. Now, since we're still in the construction area, first part of the construction, I hope there's something we can do about it. But I just fail to understand how people can annex areas and not have made these studies and to protect not only the people who are going to buy that property, but those people who are below that property. And you say, well, we don't know what to do about it. Neither does somebody else when maybe the cost of going back and doing it is more than what the property's worth.
Yeah, so I guess what I'll say is, when was the flood? 1985? The big flood, 1985.
Yeah.
And here we are in 2019, and we the city put a lot of plans in place for downtown after that, but the city is still working on flood mitigation in downtown, however many years that is later.
Yeah.
So, look, I hear you loud and clear. What we should do is plan better for the future and hopefully work to come up with some solutions for these problem areas that we have now.
Well, I would like to make one suggestion, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Put a moratorium on annexation until those plans are proven to work.
Well, certainly something that
because as long as you keep letting people build, the contractors and developers will build it, and once they get it sold, it's the problem of whoever bought the house.
Of the property owner, absolutely.
Hey, I appreciate the call this morning. Thank you very much. And we'll be back with more with Cheyenne City Councilman Rocky Case